Welcome back to the Fantasy Flex podcast from Action Network and FantasyLabs. I'm your host, Kevin Mahserejian, and I'm joined by Sean Koerner. We're getting into the guys we're completely out on this year in today's episode. Sean, before we jump in, people saw the title. We're talking fantasy busts. Who is the biggest bust you've had on one of your fantasy teams in recent years? I know Brian Thomas Jr. was mine last year, so that still stings.
My first pick ever, it's like 1998. I want to say I took Cordell Stewart with my first pick. Like one of the first like true rushing quarterbacks at the time. So I thought, that was going to be a good pick. Didn't turn out well, but I took Chris Carter a couple rounds later or early on. And then I took Randy Moss, took a flyer on Randy Moss towards the end of the draft. He was a rookie. I thought, why the hell not? And then I picked up Randall Cunningham in season. So I had the true Vikings stack. And so I learned at a very young age that, late round QB punting at quarterback's not the worst possible thing. But I think I probably started Cordell maybe like twice that whole season, despite being my first pick. So I just started things off with a bang, drafting a bust.
Yeah, I was 4 years old around then, so I'm not too familiar with that situation. But I remember, last year very fondly between BTJ and Xavier Worthy. I think it was like the second play of the game. He tore his shoulder. I'm trying to forget 2025. We're moving on to 2026, and we're trying to get better. Iron sharpens iron. That's why we're doing this. Let's get into some busts for the 2026 fantasy football season. Who's your quarterback bust? We're going to go position by position: quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end.
First off,
yeah,
I need your live reaction. This is rare that we get like breaking news. Did you see the trade?
Yeah, unfortunate, but my boy Jarquez Hunter is gone. R.I.P. as Rams fan. Yeah, I know. Blake Corum, your boy is the runway is wide open for him as RB2, maybe RB1.
Well, yeah, I mean, Kyron's obviously not going to miss a game again this year. Yeah, he's a true Iron Man, but at least I won't have to respond to people saying like, "You're aware Jarquez Hunter is on the team, right?" I won't have to like acknowledge that anymore. Just move on. But and then Tutu's back to the Rams. So
again,
Hunter's Devon Achane injury away of RB2 value though. Maybe.
I mean, they have Ollie, they have Jalen Wright. That's a weird running back room. I'm just avoiding it. I mean, Achane obviously is a pick, but I'm not trying to get a handcuff there. Yeah, I mean, I guess Dean Connors looked good in preseason that the Rams were like, yeah, we're good on Jarquez, which is crazy after spending a 4th round pick, but that's the Rams.
All right, well, to my bust, we'll have to pick on Jalen Hurts one more time. And I don't love busts because if you think about it, if you're a 12-person league, you're not drafting 92% of the time. So you're typically just passing up on, 92% of the guys anyway. But just where Jalen Hurts goes and my outlook for him, he's still kind of the guy I'm avoiding. So I don't love taking him at ADP. But you mentioned it on one of our most recent pods, but just his decline in rushing yards overall and scramble rate is really the biggest concern, because that was always his asset, right? Like, he can run for 50 plus yards any given week. He's just not really leaning on his legs as much, which makes sense. As he gets older, he's not going to want to rush as much. And, he's losing his top weapon in A.J. Brown. I think Devontae Smith is going to step up in a big way this year, but, he's going to have to rely on a rookie and Mekhi Lemon. And, Dontavian Wicks has looked good, but still could see a minor drop-off in passing production. And like I've mentioned time and time again, the tush push is starting to fall apart. The league doesn't look like they're going to ban it, but leagues have gotten better defending the Eagles version of it. And, the league started cracking down and calling their, offensive offsides or false starts. So, they were less willing to use it as much in the second half of the season. So might not see as many gimme 1-yard tush pushes this year for Hurts. So I just don't love some of the red flags there. Plus, where he's going, I have Hurts and Trevor Lawrence with pretty much the same exact points projection, but you can get Trevor Lawrence 30 picks later. So that's why, I would never really reach for Jalen Hurts there, knowing I can get Lawrence a couple rounds later. And like I mentioned with Cordell Stewart, I'm totally fine completely just punting on quarterbacks if I don't get anybody I like early on. And usually you can stream guys or get a guy late and be just fine. So I don't really love drafting someone like Hurts where he's going in the draft.
Yeah, at this point, we're gonna get you a Cordell Stewart jersey if Jalen Hurts pans out, just in honor. But I'm with you. I'm not drafting Jalen Hurts. He has a 5% touchdown rate since a passing touchdown rate, excuse me, since AJ Brown joined the team. He was around 4% right before that, but he was those were his first 2 seasons. It's just hard to tell what this passing offense looks like. He's reached really high highs, 8 yards per attempt in 2 of the past 4 seasons. He's also had, like, last year was his career low in yards per attempt, and that was with AJ Brown. They added Mekhi Lemon. It doesn't sound like Eli Stowers, their second round tight end, is gonna really pan out this season. Might be a redshirt year for him. I still like Dallas Goedert. Devonta Smith, I expect him taking a step up this year, but it's really hard to make up for an alpha true wide receiver one like an AJ Brown. The O line, we have to see how they're going to look. I mean, Lane Johnson again is getting older. Jordan Mailata was hurt last year. The interior hasn't been as good as when Jason Kelsey, Hall of Famer, has been gone. So there's some question marks. I do like the addition of Sean Mannion. Maybe some new little trickles into, or not trickles, but like little tricks into the offense. We'll see. But yeah, the rushing efficiency has been going down. The tush push is getting figured out. I'm with you. Not interested in Hurts. I'd rather have Herbert, rather have Lawrence, or if you're in a league which boosts passing scoring, Dak Prescott, Jared Goff. Those are 2 options later in the draft that, like, you could pretty much make up the difference for Hurts rushing if passing touchdowns are 6 points and passing yards are 20 yards per pass point. So yeah, my bust here is kind of similar, rushing quarterback in the NFC East, actually. So we're staying in the family here. It's Jackson Dart. Now, Jackson Dart's going at the back end of a QB1 range, maybe even high QB2. Just depends on where you draft. He had a great rookie year, but a lot of that was rushing. His passing, I don't know. I wasn't exactly moved by Dart as a passer. I expect him to remain the starting quarterback for most of the season, assuming he's healthy. He started 12 games, played in 14 last year. A solid 4.4% touchdown rate, but 6.7 yards per attempt. He didn't have Malik Neighbors. That's fair. They added Isaiah Likely. Darnell Mooney, we'll see. But I don't know. I still have some question marks on Dart. And 487 yards on the ground, 9 rushing touchdowns in 12 starts. I just don't know how much we're going to get, how much they're going to let him run. Harbaugh's the kind of guy that'll let a quarterback run, but at the same time, he couldn't get out of the medical tent last year, and I don't want to deal with that on a week-to-week basis. Malik Neighbors, yes, he's one of the best wide receivers in the league at full strength. Is he at full strength this season off that brutal knee injury? Are you buying Jackson Dart?
Well, I did last year. I thought people were kind of sleeping on his rushing upside, which, I mean, we saw it's massive last year. But I agree with you. For me, the concern is just in-game injury, because we could already tell in preseason he hasn't learned his lesson. He's just out there just doing his thing. He's going to take shots. And luckily, it looks like Tyrone Tracy blew that block. They brought in Najee Harris. They're going to try to protect him as much as possible. But I would just be worried, like, if you're in week 17, championship week, in the first quarter, he takes a hit and, it goes to the blue tent. They hold him out for precautionary reasons. It's just like, then you're cooked. So it's like, anytime you play him, you just have to have the concern that he might not finish the game. But, when he's in the game, when he's healthy, obviously he has top 10 upside. But just that quarterback, especially if you have him, you might need to carry a second quarterback just to be safe. When he's out, you got to plug somebody else in. So, again, anytime there's like a red flag on a quarterback, I'm usually out. So he's going early enough. Yeah, I would kind of fade him, but I could get behind it because, again, when he is healthy, he's good. But just the concern is still there with his injury risk.
Yeah, I look at Brock Purdy or Bo Nix in that same range. I'd much rather have them. I think they're both in much better offenses. They both run as well, but they try to protect themselves. Purdy got hurt last year, but it wasn't like on a run or anything crazy like what Dart does, just going head first into guys. And I don't know, maybe that's just the ethos with him and Cam Scatteraboo. They're just going to keep doing it, but I don't want to pay for it. And I'd just rather, in best ball, it's fine. You can get his spike weeks. You don't really have to worry about when he leaves. Obviously, it sucks to lose a quarterback, but yeah, no thanks on Dart. Moving on to running back, who is your running back bust for the
I gotta
2026 season?
I gotta stick with the rookie Jadarian Price. Like I've said time and time again, just the absolute best possible landing spot for him, landing in the first round to the reigning Super Bowl champs who have an elite defense, and moved on from Kenneth Walker, and Zach Charbonnet's coming back from a late torn ACL, so he's probably not even going to be ready for week one. So again, the market has priced all that in, pun intended, but I think he's going to be operating at his ceiling early in the year, and I still view him as like an RB3 flex because um, doesn't really have much experience in college, which is fine, but like his pass protection is going to need work, so that could be an issue, especially for a rookie. Rookie running backs, in order to see the field, like they need to be willing and able to pass block, so that could hurt his upside. Um, George Holani could be, the pass catching back early on. Uh, Emmanuel Wilson has been an excellent goal line back in his career, and AJ Barner. They use AJ Barner in the tush push. That was very successful for them last year. So I just think his touchdown upside, his receiving upside, are both limited. Especially when Charbonnet comes back. I think Charbonnet will be the goal line back again. So Price is going to get a bunch of carries inside the 20s, which are the least valuable touches for running back there is. So I keep telling people, if you want 50 to 60 rushing yards with 10 to 20 receiving yards and maybe a touchdown every 3 games, then by all means draft Jadarian Price. You'll have fun with that. Week one props are up right now. His prop is 49.5 rushing yards for week one, and again, that's when he's operating at his ceiling when Charbonnet's out, and I still don't think it's going to be high end RB2 upside. So I just rather take other positions in this range. This is the frozen pond range, and then just take high upside guys a few rounds later. So he just doesn't fit my draft strategy, and there's a lot of uncertainty here. I'm not saying he's going to be this year's Caleb Johnson, but he is going right around the same time as Caleb last year, and I was fine fading him. So just Price, it's just really tough to get behind taking him in this range. Wouldn't be shocked, if he does have a good season, but there's quite a bit of risk here, and his role might be more limited than I think people think. And Kenneth Walker was usually like a low end RB2 in this offense with Charbonnet healthy, so we've kind of seen this before. I think this is a great landing spot, but still, he's going to be kind of in a pretty strict committee.
Yeah, even Kenneth Walker. I mean, he had a great year last year. He did get cucked at the goal line a bunch by Zach Charbonnet, so that is fair to mention. But he was only averaging about 12 points per game. He wasn't he wasn't the best running back in football, even though he had some really good runs, an incredible postseason run. But let's say the high end for Price is 2025 Kenneth Walker. It's an okay RB2, solid.
Yep.
It's like you're not mad about it. But like my concern, I'm willing to draft Price in half PPR. I don't mind, just because I do think the touchdown upside with Charbonnet gone, and the questions with Charbonnet in general off an ACL are fair to wonder. Like, is he going to be himself? Is he going to get the role back? He is expected back sooner than later. But even so, it's like, what does he look like? If he doesn't look good, they're not going to play him often. He was a solid running back, but that was a pretty gnarly late season injury. So who knows? Emmanuel Wilson, who you mentioned, is expected to miss maybe the first 2 weeks of the season. So, yeah, Price, I kind of like drafting him with the idea of trading him, if that makes sense. Like, you start him for like a month, and yeah, people are going to be like, oh, Charbonnet's coming back. And hey, maybe he keeps going while Charbonnet's back, but I think he could have a hot first half to the season and then kind of slow down. He only had 295 total touches in college through 3 years, 41 games. He was healthy. This wasn't a question of, he missed time. Yes, he was behind Jeremiah Love. He had 15 total receptions in 41 games. He wasn't used as a passing down back. He's good, but is he great? I don't know. I think he could be good for sure. And again, if you draft him with the concept of the idea to sell him and, capitalize on that on a buy low, like Jamar Chase, like last year, Jamar Chase by week 5, people were willing to give up Chase for anything just to get off of him. So I don't know who that's going to be in 2026, but there's always going to be high end buy lows after the first month of the season, people do panic. So if you draft Price with the intention of selling high after a month, which I think he can, he could handle business early on. Maybe he could get gassed by the second half of the season. Who knows? 295 touches is not a lot through 3 years. So I'm with you on Price, but I think there is a way to draft him and it to work out.
Yeah, I think that's a great point because I always like getting a top 12 running back. People keep mincing my words, but yeah, I want an RB1 early on in the draft in the first couple rounds, and then I kind of wait at running back. If something goes awry and like I need a second running back to start the season, Price makes a ton of sense because again, he's going to be operating at his ceiling right away. And then, have all my bullshit high upside backups where, hopefully they make spot starts at some point where, yeah, if you need like a safer floor early on, Price is your guy. But long term, I'm thinking fantasy playoffs, a lot can happen, a lot of volatility where he's in a scary range. But yeah, definitely like a potential sell high if he does get off to a hotter start, which I do expect.
Yeah, to be fair, I will say this as well. His schedule is very easy up until the fantasy playoffs. Week 1, Eagles. Week 2, Rams. So it does get a little brutal for the Seattle Seahawks in the fantasy playoffs. Carolina Panthers, Week 17. They did improve their defense, but that's a fine. Like, I mean, if you could get them to Week 17, that's fantastic. But yeah, first 5 starts are Patriots, not the easiest. Cardinals, Commanders, Chargers. They're usually not the best run defense. 49ers always hurt. And then it gets a little tough. But yeah, I think Price is a good early start, mid-season sell high type of candidate. But a guy I'm not drafting at all is Quinshon Judkins. Similar frozen pawn tier. I think he goes like back-to-back with Jadarian Price. And he looked incredible last year, but pretty gnarly injury. Snapped I believe it was his leg or ankle. He had a leg injury. Missed the rest of the season. Dylan Sampson didn't do much, but Dylan Sampson did look really good as a receiving back. He was one of the most efficient by yards per route run. Solid target per route run for him as well. I look at this as if Quinshon Judkins can't, regain form early on. I know the practice videos look good for him, but, games versus practice are very different. And Dylan Sampson, he was, 2021 last year. If he takes a step up, I think this could be more of a committee than people expect. And Quinshon Judkins, I mean, at the end of the day, they're on the Browns. Do I really want a Browns starting running back with Deshaun Watson, especially early on in the season, against the Steelers and the Jaguars first 2 weeks? Not really. That's not really appealing. And you're drafting him in a range where in the 6th round, you're ideally starting that guy early on in the season. You don't want to bench your 6th round pick immediately or kind of wait for Shedeur Sanders, which is the upside on this offense. And I do like Shedeur for fantasy purposes, for his own fantasy purposes, maybe if he keeps running and, more so for the offense than Deshaun Watson. But I don't know. I'm not really moved by a 6th round Browns running back. It's Tampa Bay week 2. Pittsburgh's week 4. So Jaguars, Buccaneers, Steelers, 4 of the first 3 weeks. Then this isn't a great schedule for them. It does ease up after their bye week in week 11, but do you really want to hold Quinshon Judkins? Maybe you could buy low on him for the second half if he starts slow. But I just have no interest in a guy who, yes, he had those wildcat snaps. Yes, he was a solid goal line option, but it's the Browns at the end of the day. They upgraded their O-line, but has it been upgraded to top 15 to 20, or has it been upgraded from like bottom 2 to like bottom 8? What do you think, Sean?
Oh yeah, no, I'm with you on this. I took his under 925.5 rushing yards. That was one of the first season-long props I locked in. I wrote like a massive article on it. And you're right. It's like he's the kind of back that needs leading game scripts, and he plays for the Browns. So that's a horrible recipe. Plus, I'm looking at it. He faced a stacked box, a league high 45% of the time. That's 6% higher than King Henry. So like his stats look kind of ugly for good reason because, he's facing 8+ defenders most of the time. That I don't think that's going to change because they're not going to be scared of Deshaun Watson or Shedeur Sanders. So I'm expecting a high stack box rate again, low touchdown upside just based on the offense. He's not really breaking 80-yard touchdown runs either. So he kind of needs the offense to supply him with goal line looks. And yeah, they're going to be trailing a ton. I think that's really a Dylan Sampson type game script when the Browns start trailing. So wouldn't be shocked if he has a couple of good games. Maybe we see like a 200-yard rushing game from him or something, but he just won't be as consistent as I think you'd like from your RB2, just based on the offense. And he's coming back from that injury. We don't know if he's going to be truly 100%, especially early on. So there's enough concerns there where he's smack dab in the middle of the frozen pond. I would definitely watch your step.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we move on, don't forget that right now is the best time to check out Fantasy Labs. We've got new features this season like live draft tools, tiered player rankings, best ball stack analysis, and more. Check out the NFL season-long package at FantasyLabs.com/subscribe and use the promo code FLEX20 for $20 off an annual subscription. That's FLEX20, FLEX20 for $20 off at FantasyLabs.com/subscribe. Okay, moving on. Wide receiver. Sean, who are you fading?
Carnell Tate now. I saw you tweeting over the weekend. I had similar thoughts, but maybe Cam Ward's just not good. We're still waiting for Bryce Young, a former first overall pick, to really get things going. I don't want to overreact to preseason. I never wanted to do that, but we can't ignore it. I mean, some of these players almost have a full game sample to go off of right now, and Tate's one of them where he's run 22 routes now. He's seen 5 targets, but he has 0 receptions. His connection with Ward looks shaky so far. They could fix that in season. I've seen it happen before, but they still have, Wandale. I think Wandale might be the top target in this offense. Calvin Ridley's still there. Gunnar Helm. Tajay Spears is a good pass catching back. So maybe Tate's not going to get as many targets as I was hoping for, and maybe he's going to just get off to a slower start than I was hoping for. And he's, going right around wide receiver, like in between wide receiver 30 and 35 right now, which for rookies I like to take flyers on once they're outside of the top 40. But where you're taking Tate, you kind of need him to have a good rookie season. So I think there's enough concern here to kind of not take a flyer on him. And there's plenty of guys in this range, like, Parker Washington. I know you're pretty high on Cortland Sutton. He might be a safer option.
Sutton goes lower, I'm pretty sure. It's like Brian Thomas Jr., Marvin Harrison Jr. I'd much rather have them and bet on them taking, or like Brian Thomas Jr. was top 5 in yards per route.
Yeah, we've already seen it with him.
We've seen it. And he has Trevor Lawrence, who I'm pretty sure we both agree is a pretty good quarterback.
And a better scheme. We still don't know what this offense will look like under Dable. So, again, there's just enough question marks there. Where someone like Stribling, he's going where you're starting to fill out your bench, more willing to take flyers on rookies later on. But, yeah, just where Tate's going, little bit more worried. Again, 0 catches on 22 routes so far. Not great. So
apparently in practice he had 7 catches today against the Bears secondary. So I don't think that says much.
He's been looking good on those clips that we see online, but under the bright lights, in pads, hasn't been good. Again, I wouldn't be shocked if he ends up being a top 30 wide receiver this season. But again, he's going in a range where you kind of need him to do that.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
Can I say something? Looks like Tarzan plays like Jane. Is that crazy?
Yeah.
I mean, he's a talented player. Like, he has the physique. He has the metric. He just looks the part, but I don't know. He didn't earn the targets in college. He was a 20%-ish target share guy at the end. I mean, before, I get it. Like, the competition is massive, but like, it was just Jeremiah Smith, amazing, one of the best wide receiver prospects ever, and then not much behind him at Ohio State, and he still couldn't command a significant target share. He had a lot of yards. He had like a 30% yard share, which is really good. But like, I want to see you command the targets, and he just never did. I think he can have a good rookie year, but not a great rookie year. And like, again, the Cam Ward problem is potentially real. The backups are Trubisky and Will Levis, so not great there. And I think Wandale leads this team in targets, even though he did leave with a potential concussion today. But like, I'd expect Wandale to be the target leader on this offense. What about you?
Yeah, same. I'm thinking he'll be the target leader. At least he should be. I think Cam Ward needs to take more high percentage throws. And Tate might actually be good, but then if Cam Ward isn't, we have a Tet McMillan problem. Again, I love Tet McMillan. I'm super high on him as a talent. The only reason I'm kind of down on him is just they try to limit Bryce Young, and Bryce Young hasn't shown it yet. So it's kind of a combo right now, Tate, where I don't know what the hell is going on, because I've been watching preseason closely, and he's been close. I think the effort wasn't there on some of the drop balls, but just not what you want to see from a rookie heading into the season. So I've seen enough to kind of shy away for the most part, but yeah, definitely worrisome the last few weeks for me.
Totally. It's just the guy I don't really trust to start in my lineup until I see it for multiple weeks, or
Exactly.
unless he puts up like some crazy numbers early on in the season. So it's just one of those pieces. Like if you could get him after pick 75, maybe I would be in, just because wide receiver does thin out. Especially if you play in a 3 wide receiver league, I'm definitely more open to him. But if it's just 2 wide receiver, 1 flex, 2 RB, it just doesn't. It feels like a superfluous piece to your fantasy team. A guy I'm out on going way higher is Rashee Rice. I checked on ESPN. His ADP is like mid-second round on ESPN. That's ridiculous. Like he's going around early third round on Underdog. I think Yahoo is like mid-third round, a little more okay. In PPR, I get it, but like he's coming off the knee injury. I think it's another one, or another knee surgery. He went to prison, or he was for 30 days or so. He hasn't looked good in practice. He hasn't been able to get separation. I know he's still working his way back. I don't really buy the Cyrus Allen thing, but maybe he's good. I still believe in Xavier Worthy. He had the torn shoulder again, like I mentioned early last year. Maybe he had a really good rookie year, especially in that second half of the season into the playoffs. Maybe his third year, he's finally figured it out after a year where it was just mired with injury. They still have Kelsey. Like, I just like Kelsey. Rice feels clunky in the middle of the field. They added Walker. Maybe they pass less. I don't know. The Rashee Rice thing, it felt really gimmicky, and it's like gimmicks only last so long. Like he's not untalented, but is he this top 12 to 15 wide receiver? I don't believe so. I'd rather take a shot on like Zay Flowers in year 4. I'd rather take a shot on Lad McConkey. T. Higgins, same-ish range. And like we saw Jamar Chase had that scare. Like, let's say T. Higgins, if Jamar Chase got hurt tomorrow, missed the season, where would you draft T. Higgins?
Definitely top 10. I don't think he would see like a ton of targets, but yeah, he'd be top 10. I mean, his touchdown upside would be absolutely through the roof. But yeah, maybe even top 5. I mean,
I think a JSN combo with T. Higgins without Chase wouldn't be crazy. Just his touchdown upside. You're right. The targets, I don't think he's going to crack a 30% target share, but he can get up to 25 to 27. That's reasonable for T, since he's always, he's scaled up in games Jamar's missed. We've seen T in games Jamar's missed. He's a monster. Yeah. So I'd rather take a shot on T, and his floor is his median is pretty damn good as well with with Jamar active, given that Joe Burrow throws 600 plus times a year. So I'm just talking that range. I'm out on Rice because I do think there are more talented wide receivers, all in their primes, that I'd much rather take a shot on. How do you feel on Richie?
Yeah, I'm with you because, again, there's enough red flags here. I'm willing to back off a bit. Early in the draft, if there's like red flags, I'm out. So I think similar to you, where I was worried about Cyrus Allen, not so much anymore. Similar to Tate, he's had a great camp, but just hasn't really spilled over in the preseason. Allen ranks 50th out of 53 qualified rookie wide receivers in yards per route run in preseason. Tate ranks dead last, obviously, with 0. But I think the concern with Rice is, he does rely on a ton of volume. And the Chiefs might be more they won't be run heavy, but they might pass less this year because they have Kenneth Walker there. So, there might just be less volume to go around. And yeah, Rice might need some time for his knee to get fully to 100%, so he could get off to a slower start. Whereas like Zay Flowers, I have 0 concerns about him. I absolutely love him in that range. Malik Neighbors, when healthy, he has top 5 upside. So yeah, I rather just target even like Garrett Wilson. Who knows? With Geno Smith under center, maybe we see a top 10 season. I don't know, but I just feel like I'd rather just take some of the guys around him, as opposed to rolling the dice on Rice being just fully healthy. And again, he relies on a ton of volume. So if you're in a full PPR format, I like him a little bit more, but half PPR a little bit less.
Yeah, where he goes, like in a full PPR at the 3-4 ish turn, I think that's totally fine.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like I said, like he does have a higher ADP, and in half PPR, like underdog, I don't want to take a shot on him and rely on him for a full season as well. If you do draft him and he does do really well in the early season, I would definitely look to sell high. But yeah, no, he's just, and I don't know. That's just a weird offense right now. And like you said, Walker, they're going to want to run more, even with the defense maybe taking a step back. But moving on, tight end. Who is your tight end fade?
I'm sticking with Tucker Kraft, even though it is scary because he was a beast last year.
He's full
when
go.
healthy. Yeah. So, I mean, my problem with him is where he's going. He's tight end 5 on Yahoo. That is smack dab in the middle of my tight end frozen pond tier. So he's going right around Luther Burden, DJ Moore, Tootin, and Price on Yahoo, right around that range. On ESPN, he's going closer to tight end 9. So if he follows me at tight end 9 on ESPN, I'm all of a sudden interested. But I just love punting tight end if I don't get like one of the top 2 or 3 guys. Again, last year, this range was TJ Hawkinson, Sam Laporta, who got hurt, David Njoku, and Evan Ingram. I don't think Kraft is going to be a bust like those guys, but it just goes to show that tight end in general, Kev, we know this from the Fantasy Pros contest, tight end in general is just a crapshoot week to week. It's a very inconsistent, touchdown dependent, very deep position. Every week, I feel like there's 3 or 4 guys on the waiver wire I'm salivating over and don't know which one to stream. It's like a very deep position in the modern day NFL, so there's a lot of options. So I'm usually not panicking and just taking a guy because I want to show people, look, I got Tucker Kraft. Like, I don't care. I want either Bowers or McBride or nobody. So he just doesn't go in a range. I'm targeting the position. He did, mention that, he might be eased in a little bit early in the season. Sounds like he's fully healthy. He's ready to go week 1, but they might limit his usage just a bit early on. And that's a concern for me because he relied so much on touchdowns and yards after the catch last year. Those are less sticky year over year than other stats. So, there's some regression potentially coming there. And, they just signed Jonnu Smith. I know someone's going to go, Jonnu Smith, who gives a shit? But it's somebody. It's a body, right? That could take away some snaps from him early on. So, it's a little bit too many red flags for me for Kraft. Will I be shocked if he finishes top 3? Absolutely not. I'm just not, rolling the dice on tight end at this point in the draft. And it really hasn't failed me the last few seasons. So I'm just going to stick to avoiding the frozen pond.
Yeah, I'm way more in on Tucker Kraft than you, but I agree on Yahoo. He's in the 50s, maybe early 60s. He's very high on Yahoo, and I don't want that. There's a lot of weird ADPs on Yahoo, like quarterbacks are pushed up. Josh Allen's a second rounder. Drake May and Joe Burrow are in the 40s. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of those ADPs. But on ESPN, if you play on ESPN leagues, Tucker Kraft's in the hundreds. I'll absolutely take Tucker Kraft. Like I'd reach on him at like pick 85 to 90 if I need my tight end.
Exactly.
And you mentioned Bowers and McBride.
Dependent.
Yes, absolutely. You mentioned Bowers and McBride. Obviously, they're the top 2 tight ends. They're fans. I love Loveland too. But if you don't you're not always going to get them in any draft. And if you get the shot at ADP, that's one thing. That's fine. But I mean, again, on ESPN, I think that is a very good leverage piece if you get Tucker Kraft after pick like 85. Because last year he was tight end 1 from week 1 to 8. Tight end 1 overall in points per game. Then he got hurt. He had the ACL. But again, good to go for week 1. Jonnu is definitely not ideal for the early season. But we saw Jonnu. He looked unplayable last year. He's not a great blocker. I think he's just insurance because Luke Musgrave has been so bad. I think that
And
says more about Luke Musgrave and the backups or the backup receiving tight ends than it does about Kraft. And look, Kraft, I mean, he's not a stranger to sharing snaps either. Last year, he was playing a ton, but, he's had several games where he produced and he was playing underneath like 80% of the snaps. But yeah, he's kind of like the baby Kittle where he's such a prominent blocker. He's not always going to be running routes. So we'll see. I don't think he has tight end 1 overall upside off an ACL, but do I think he could finish top 5? Yeah, he did it. He's done it already. He's already shown us that. And I think Jordan Love is a very good passer. Not the most, not voluminous. He doesn't have the volume to support that many receivers, but Kraft's very efficient. Like Watson's very efficient. Reed's very efficient. Golden is maybe very efficient. So like all these guys, all this speed, I think kind of like the rising tide lifts all boats and helps these guys out. And with no Dubes, no Wicks, the offense is going to consolidate. And yeah, I'm in on Kraft. And like on Underdog, he goes pick 75 to 80. That's totally fine, especially in half PPR. I will say I prefer Kraft in half PPR.
Yeah, best ball, that's a completely different animal because there's no waiver wire, there's no in-season management. So yeah, best ball, he's completely different because he does offer that spike week potential. So I want to be clear about that distinction. But yeah, when I think people underestimate just how powerful the waiver wire is. You technically have the field every week at your disposal, and it's so easy to just kind of stream a top 10 tight end, and you eventually end up with one. Again, I drafted Warren and Loveland super late, or picked up Fannin, or picked up Gadsden, or Darren Waller at times. It's very easy these days to have backup plans on the wire.
And yeah, tight end's weird. Like we've had weird seasons, like Eric Ebron on the Colts, Gary Barnage that one season, Jonnu 2 seasons ago.
Jonnu on the Dolphins,
yeah, Jonnu on the Dolphins. That was insane. I mean, Darren Waller last year had some weeks too. Tight end can definitely get weird. It's probably a position you don't need to prioritize unless you get one of the top few. But the middle is always weird, and that's where I'm fading my guy, or not my guy, but the guy I'm fading, Sam Laporta. Again, another NFC North. We're sticking with the division for another one of these positions. Yeah, Sam Laporta, definitely an extremely talented player. This isn't a question of Laporta as a player. It's just him coming off of the microdiscectomy on his back. Yes, he's back to practicing, but I mean, God, I just hate drafting a guy in the top 100 off of back surgery or a back injury. That who knows what happens. Maybe he's back. Maybe he needed it and he's 100% now, but I don't know. His efficiency has gone up each of the past past 2 seasons after his rookie year. He didn't really have the touchdowns last year. He had 3, but who knows if the back was lingering. Again, very talented, but they have Monroe St. Brown. J-Mo took a step up in the second half. Gibbs is, getting more involved as a receiver. And maybe they required Sam Laporta to block more. I just don't know what his role is going to be, if he's going to be able to scale up, if he's going to stay healthy. He had a scare a few days ago. I'm just not in love with him and his price. Again, Kraft goes after him in some leagues. I look at guys I could get later, like Dallas Goedert versus Sam Laporta. I think they could produce very similarly, especially, again, with the Eli Stowers not looking good thing. Like, I think it's a coin flip for me, given how much Dallas Goedert was involved in the red zone last year. I mean, are you drafting Laporta? Because I just can't do it this year.
No, he's definitely he's in that frozen pond where there's actual injury concerns with him. And yeah, like you said, there's a lot of mouths to feed in that Lions offense. So he's going to just be pretty inconsistent as a result, as are most tight ends once you get outside the top 3 or 4. But yeah, I'm out on all those guys in that range, and just throw George Kittle in there, who's coming off, he's coming off an Achilles tear. It's one of those guys where halfway through the season, we might be thinking, oh yeah, maybe that was a bad idea, drafting a 32-year-old tight end coming off an Achilles tear. Kittle could also be a top 5 tight end. I'm not going to be confused with any outcome when it comes to Kittle. But again, the tight end position is so deep on the waiver wire, I just don't even bother asking these questions. But yeah, Laporta, I'd say, has the biggest injury concern because it's more of a current injury situation. So I think he's a clear avoid right now. Whereas, like Kraft and Kittle, they're like apparently 100% going into week one. They just might be somewhat limited. But yeah, Laporta is like an immediate injury concern as we speak.
Definitely. And I look at his season last year. I mean, he was a tight end 7 by points per game, again, behind Dallas Goedert. And he was pretty much in line with like Harold Fannin Jr., who goes behind him. And Harold Fannin wasn't really starting for the first few weeks of the season. And then it was the second half where Harold Fannin really blew up. I'd much rather have Fannin going later. Kyle Pitts goes later. Kyle Pitts outscored Laporta last year. I know that one crazy blow up game in week 15 is what really elevated Pitts. But at the same time, it's like if Penix takes over for Tua, I'm not as concerned about the offense. I just can't do it with Laporta. And it's unfortunate because I did love him going into last year. He just burned me.
Yeah.
And I mean, I hate to be the guy, he burned me last year. That's why I'm not drafting him. But it was a pretty severe injury that he had to deal with and get surgery for. And that'll do it for us here on the Fantasy Flex from Action Network and FantasyLabs. Next episode, we'll talk fantasy sleepers. Don't forget to use promo code FLEX20 at FantasyLabs.com for $20 off an annual subscription. For Sean and myself, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.